Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you joining us today in this live lecture coming to you from Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. Today's date is Oye Market Day in the Igbo lunar calendar. Remember that 4 market days. So 4 market days into 4 makes 1 month in Igbo lunar calendar called Izu Asa. In the Roman Catholic calendar, today's date is 6/27/2025. And in the Roman Catholic calendar, 7 days makes 28 days, which is their own 1 month. So in Igbo lunar calendar, if our 4 market days, 7 of our 4 market days makes 28 days, which is Izunasa, which is 1 month, why are we then following the foreign Roman Catholic calendar? We should be following our own. And also remember that at Nkolo Mahadum, we always advise you to use your naturally given common sense called Akonuche, because you have to be using it. Otherwise, you cannot know the truth from every other thing they are telling you. And that's why we set up Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University to help to decolonize your brain, to question things. And when you question things and learn new information, you use that new information to continue to live your life. And you pass those information to your children, to your friends and well-wishers, to your family, and to your community, to your nation. You spread that new information so that you cannot be living in an old, outdated information. That's why you will benefit a lot to always join us at Nkolo Mahadum and go back to our previous lectures so that you will understand the type of education, the type of information we are presenting to you to benefit you and your generations to come. Because we package our lectures from the Igbo man, the Biafran, and African viewpoints, how you should be seeing things. You cannot be seeing things from how an Israeli or a Palestinian or a Saudi Arabian or an American or somebody from France or Australia are seeing things. No, you see things from your own perspective. How is the world affecting you? And that's why we are asking you to join, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. The title of today's lecture is Human Beings Use GDP. GDP is Gross Domestic Products. Military Industrial Complex. Wars. United Nations Security Council. And nuclear weapons and diplomacy to change the world. Not God or Jesus. Today, the title of today's lecture is that human beings use GDP, that is the gross domestic product, military industrial complex, wars, nuclear weapons, United Nations Security Council, and diplomacy to change the world. Not God or Jesus. So the world is changing right now in our eyes. If you are following what is going on, you will see that the world is going on. The world is being changed by human beings. Human beings is the one that changes the world, and it's changing in our own very eyes, in our lifetime. And we at Nkolo Mahadum want you to know that and recognize that all this thing that is happening in the USA, in Russia, in China, in Iran, in Israel, are world-changing events. The world is being changed. And let us explain to you what GDP means. GDP means gross domestic product The gross domestic product is the value of all the final goods and services from a nation in a given year. All the goods and services that is being produced within a geographical area called a nation is called GDP. The higher GDP you have, the more activities, the more economic activities in your nation. And the less GDP you have is the less economic activity that will be going on in your nation. And in the USA, for example, in 2025, it is estimated that the goods and services that will be produced in the USA in 2025 is about 27 billion 360,935. And China in 2025, it is also estimated to be 17 billion 794,784. These estimates were done by the World Bank. And so the GDP, the gross domestic product, is the value of everything that you are producing. Are you producing oil? Are you producing farm equipments? Are you producing weapons? Are you producing aeroplanes? Are you producing cars? Whatever you are manufacturing, are you manufacturing wheelbarrow? Whatever you are manufacturing in your environment and the services that the experts that you have that is earning you money, all of them are called GDP, the gross domestic product. This is very important because for any country to be successful, you have to first of all have a strong GDP, meaning that you have to be able to be producing all kinds of things in your country. That is why if you take a look at what has happened to Russia since the American and European sanction in Russia, it didn't affect Russia much because Russia was producing most of the things that it needs as a nation. And Russia also trying to divert some of their trade to other nations. And so the starting point of progress, of stability in one's country is how strong your GDP is. How much are you producing? Very, very, very important. Because all these countries that are trying to change the world have strong GDPs. The next item is the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex is a network of individuals and institutions involved in the production of weapons and military technologies, which means when you have a very strong GDP, manufacturing things, both goods and services, amongst those goods and services will be military equipments, because it is these military equipments that they used to declare war, that they used to protect themselves and try to gain influence around the world. So you have to be able to be manufacturing military equipment, be it guns, be it aircrafts, be it missiles, whatever is related to the military advancement of a nation, you have to be able to have it, including nuclear weapons. They also use nuclear weapons to change the world. In our last lecture, we told you that the nations classified as nuclear weapon states were nations that detonated, exploded nuclear weapons by 1st of January 1967. So you have to have nuclear weapon. Even if you don't have nuclear weapon, you have to have nuclear energy, because from nuclear energy, you can have enough power, enough electricity in your country. And having electricity means a lot. It will generate a lot of manufacturing also in your country. And so having nuclear energy and weapons are means by which human beings change the world. You understand it? So GDP, having a strong GDP, having a strong military industrial complex that will producing weapons for you, in addition to having nuclear energy and also nuclear bombs and weapons, are what they are using to change the world. These are the things we want you to know from Nkolo Mahadum. It's not God, it's not Jesus that changes the world. It is what you are seeing today in your lifetime. Wars, missiles, bombs, B-12 bombers. Those are the things that they're using to change the world. That's what you have to know. The next thing they are using to change the world, human beings are using to change the world, included wars. They fight different wars. And you know, we have covert wars and overt wars. Covert wars, C-O-V-E-R-T, covert, is underground fighting without major announcement that there's a war, like what is going on between the Biafran people and the Nigerian state. It's an underground war. The war going on between IPOB and the Nigerian state is an underground war. It's not announced, but each of those components is trying to survive underground. There are a lot of things going on, but you may not know that it is a war that is going on. It is called covert war, a war that is hidden, but is being fought. It's called covert. Then overt wars, O-V-E-R-T, overt wars, are wars going on that we know that is going on. Wars that we know that are being going on, like the wars they have fought in the past and the current wars going on. Some of those wars that was fought in the past, the Iraqi USA war that ran from 2003 to 2011, the NATO and Afghanistan war, the one that went on from 2001 to 2021, then the war between NATO and Libya from February to October 2011. The war between NATO and Libya war was from February to October 2011. And the current Ukraine-Russian war, which is still ongoing. And the Israeli, Palestinian, Lebanon, Syrian, and lastly, USA and Israel bombing Iran, and Iran retaliating in the last, called the 12 Days War, which went on from June 13th to June 25. All these are overt wars. We know that these are wars. And these wars are being fought to change the world. They are fighting the war to change the world. The one in Ukraine is NATO, led by America, trying to use Ukraine to weaken Russia so that they will go to Russia and balkanize it and split Russia, divide them so they can exploit their natural resources. That's why that war is going on. The one in Israel and Lebanon and Gaza and Syria is to make Israel the biggest power in the Middle East. So that's how they're changing the world. And we cannot end it by remembering the Nigerian Biafran War, the genocidal war that also went on from 1967 to 1970. That war stop the Biafran nation from being and forced the Biafran people back to Nigeria again. So that's how they changed the war. If the Biafran war had succeeded, we would have had our own Biafran nation by now. But because we were defeated, it failed. That's why we were pushed back into Nigeria. And so wars are means by which human beings change the world. That's what we want you to know. That wars that you hear and see is one of the means of changing the world. Anytime you hear war going on, it's a means of changing the world. Another means of changing the world is the United Nations Security Council. This is a very important because in that council, you have 5 permanent membership that have veto power. And most of these 5 permanent members were the ones that won the Second World War. And they are United States, United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. And they have permanent membership in that Security Council and with veto power. And they have, and since the formation, since 1946, they have vetoed more than 200 resolutions. These 5 countries put together have vetoed more than 200 resolutions that will have changed a lot of things in the world. But because of their own personal interest, that is why they are exercising that veto. And that is why the world is not equal. Human beings in this world are not equal. They are showing you that human beings are not equal, where you have in United Nations, where everybody's supposed to be equal. But 5 members have permanent membership and veto power. And with that, they are exercising that veto power, whereby if everybody says no, and one of them say yes, their yes will go against the rest of the world. And the last veto by one of the permanent members was by the United States, who vetoed the Palestinian question when it came up on June 25, 2025. This is serious. They are using the permanent membership in United Nations and their veto power to change the world, to make the world the way they want it. That is another thing we want you to take away from today's lecture. And the last thing we want to present in this lecture is diplomacy. Nations also use diplomacy to change the world that we live in. And diplomacy means managing international relations, typically by a country's representative, both at home and abroad, or conducting negotiations between nations, or possessing the skill in handling affairs without hostility. This is what is called diplomacy. When you hear them saying, let us use diplomacy, let us use diplomacy, it means trying to negotiate without going to war, trying to find a common ground to agree instead of disagreeing. These are what they mean. And so in today's lecture, we want to make it clear to you that human beings are using the gross domestic product, their ability to manufacture things, including military industrial complex, wars, United Nations Security Council, nuclear wars, nuclear weapons and diplomacy to change the world, not God or Jesus, because God or Jesus doesn't have the power to change the world. It is human beings that continues to change the world as we know it. If the Europeans did not come from Europe to Africa during the scramble and partition for Africa to fight with Africans and divide the land of Africa to themselves, we wouldn't have what we have right now in Africa. If nations didn't conduct the First World War, Second World War, and all the current wars we are having, we may have a different world today. If capitalism did not win communism, you know that Russia is the center of communism, the practice of communism, where government will do a lot of things for the masses, for the population. Which was in competition with capitalism, headed by America, where everybody will be struggling, just like everybody is struggling today. It's called capitalism. So if we had been using communism, we will have a different world today. So it is man that is making the decisions. That's what we want you to know. It is man that is changing the world and nobody else. It is man that decides who gets what. It is man that decides who lives and who dies, and not God. And they are using this means explained in this lecture to change the world. These are the things we want you to know in today's lecture. And before we continue, we have to beg you again to please join, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, and other social media platforms, because this is an university. What we are lecturing in this university, you cannot get it anywhere. You cannot get it in any university. So it pays you to include your children, include all your friends, include all your family members to be part of this university, because we shall be delivering more lectures that will open your eyes. And we encourage you to go back to our previous lectures, and you will see a lot of them that is very, very, very useful for you to understand the world we live in, so that the Igbo man can decide what to do. And then, you know, all our lectures, we bring it down to the Igbo race. How does it affect the Igbo race? Does the Igbo race have a GDP? Is anybody amongst the governors in the 11 states that the Igbos are living in Nigeria measure the GDP of Igbo land, of Igbo people? The answer is no. Does the Nigerian government measure the GDP of the goods and services being produced by Igbo people in the 11 states that they are in Nigeria? The answer is no, because we don't even have a nation. We don't have no nation. Do we have experts? Yes. Do we listen to the experts? The answer is no. In Igbo land, everybody claims to be an expert. Everybody is a politician. Everybody knows everything. They do not say, oh, this guy is a specialist in this, let us listen to him. No. Instead, they will start to badmouth him, cajole him, rubbish him, and that should stop. How about weapons production? Do we have any weapons production in Igbo land? In the Igbo race? In Igbo states? The answer is no. Are we currently fighting any war to advance our interests? The answer is no. Do we have any diplomacy in what we are doing? We don't have any diplomacy. Everybody's supposed to be a diplomat in Igbo land. Whether you are at home or abroad, you're supposed to be a diplomat, trying to find a way to make sure that we are giving our own nation instead of being where we are today. Because where we are today, nobody cares about us. Until we have a nation, everybody should be be a diplomat wherever you are to help to make sure that we, the Igbo race, have their own nation. And with that nation, we can be able to measure our GDP, be able to produce military equipments, including nuclear energy and nuclear weapons, be able to go to war if we choose to, and also be a member of the United Nations Security Council and fight to even have permanent membership and veto power. Why can't we? If we are equal, if an Igbo man feels that he is this, he's a billionaire, he's the best educationist, he's this and that, whatever you think you are, and we cannot be in the we cannot have our own nation, we cannot be in the United Nations Security Council, even with permanent membership and veto power, then are we going to say that we are equal to those who are Indian right now? The answer is no. So these are the things that the Igbo race should be looking at. These are the things we should be looking at. If you have policymakers, these are the benchmarks of success of races in the world. So far, the Igbo man is nowhere to be found. You don't have a nation. You don't have GDP that measures what you produce. You don't have experts. You don't have diplomats. Everybody is comfortable where they are without knowing that they have to be diplomatic to get a nation that for the Igbo race. If you don't have it, then you shouldn't be speaking. You are only a spectator in this world. So in order to bring this lecture to an end, because we want to be keeping it short, human beings are using gross domestic product, GDP, military industrial complex, wars, nuclear energy and weapons, United Nations Security Council, and diplomacy to change the world. It is man that changes the world. That is what we want you to enter into your head. Not Jesus or any God will come anywhere to change things for you. You are the one to change it by yourself. And so the GDP is the gross domestic product, is the market value of all the final goods and services that you are producing in a nation in a given year. In USA, in 2025, it is estimated to be 27,360,935. In China, it is expected to be 17,794,784. Estimated by World Bank. Why should it be the World Bank, a foreign institution that is doing this estimate? Why wouldn't it be an Igbo institution that is making the estimate? And our estimate is supposed to be right. Also, they use the military industrial complex, which is a network of individuals and institutions involved in the production of weapons and military technologies. So individuals are producing, institutions are producing, everybody is involved in the manufacturing of military equipments, and also nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. These are the tools they are using. Remember, they told us in the last we explained in the last lecture that the countries that detonated, that exploded nuclear weapon before January 1967 are all classified as nuclear weapon states, and those includes United States, UK, China, Russia, and France. Now, wars is another way that human beings use to change the world. We have covert and overt. Covert is the one that is going on underground, like the one going on now between IPOB, the Biafran people, and the Nigerian state. It's underground war. It's not announced, but there's a war. Then we have overt wars. Overt wars also is the one that is clear right now. The killing by Fulani herdsmen across the north, across the whole Nigeria. It's a war. Even though the government have not pronounced it as a war, but it's a war. Every day people are being killed. That's a war. And we also mentioned the USA and Iraqi war from 2003 to 2011. NATO war with Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021. 20 years they fought. Also NATO war with Libya from February to October 2011. And the current Ukraine-Russian war from 2022 and still ongoing. And the Israeli-Palestinian, Lebanon, Syria wars going on also from 2022 up to date. And then the last one this month, Israeli, United States, Iranian war, the 12 days war that started from June 13th to June 25. All these are wars that are meant to reshape the world. That's how humans change the world. And we will not end by adding the Nigerian Biafran genocidal war of 1967 to 1970. We fought that war so we can have our own country, but we are defeated and forced back into Nigeria. And so wars are means by which human beings change the world. And we mentioned about United Nations Security Council, where you have 5 permanent membership with veto powers. The same people, United States, UK, France, China, and Russia, they have permanent membership in the Security Council, and they have veto power. And they have vetoed more than 200 resolutions since the inception. Since 1946 to date, they have vetoed more than 200 resolutions, which are against their interest, which means the interest of these 5, actually the interest of one of them, because if one of them votes yes, why the world say no? Why everybody says no? It is their yes that will go. So the interest of one of them is more than the interest of the whole world. That shows you that the world we live in is not, there's no justice. We live in a world of injustice. And then the last thing we are telling you is that diplomacy is also used to also change the world. And a diplomat is someone that manages international relations, typically by a country's representative, either from home or abroad. And also ability to conduct relations between nations, or a scale in handling affairs without hostility. But what we are saying is that the Igbo race, everybody's supposed to be a diplomat, wherever you are, whether you are in the United States, whether you are in UK, whether you are in Australia, whether you are in any part of Africa, whether you are in Abuja, whether you are in Lagos, whether you are in France, whether you are in China, whether you are in Russia. You're supposed to be a diplomat trying to educate the world, trying to see how we can get our own nation so that we can have identity, so that we can measure our GDP. Because right now we don't measure our GDP because we don't have any boundary. Do we have experts? I will say yes, but do we respect the opinion of our experts? The answer is probably no, because everybody claims to know all. If you come to politics, everybody is a politician. If you come to anything, everybody's everything. There's no respect for our experts. There's no use of the expertise information to help us to change what we are doing to the betterment of everybody. Do we manufacture weapons? The answer is no. Do we have any war going on to advance our interests? The answer is no. Do we have a seat in the United Nations? How can you have a seat in the United States where you don't even have your own country? So, do you use diplomacy? We are calling on all Igbo people across the world to be a diplomat wherever you are until we have our own nation. And so, if you look at the standing of the world and how human beings are changing the world, the Igbo man is not there. The Igbo race is not there because you don't have anything. You don't have a nation even to start with. And so this should be the thinking part for every Igbo man. And with this, we shall be bringing today's lecture to an end. But before we do, we have to advise you again to please join us, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Because if you do, whenever we present a new lecture, you're going to be the first to get it. And whatever, all the lectures we are packaging, you can never get it anywhere. It makes you to think. And when you receive this new information, you better change. You better change. You can't be living with old information that is outdated, that is barbaric, that is of no use. Because all of them, we are misinformation, miseducation, and misinterpretation. We interpret things here the way an Igbo man should be interpreting it and seeing it objectively. And with this, we shall be bringing today's lecture to an end. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a very, very, very good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.